It's chaos.
It's a different type of Sunday scary.
It's your newest obsession.
It's Dirty Driving, a Formula One podcast.
We're the Hornsby sisters. I'm Katie.
And I'm Megan.
Hello, everyone. And welcome back to another episode of Dirty Driving. This series is for our next guest, and Megan is going to introduce our next guest.
Yes, so for our next guest, I'm actually very excited about this guest. It's a blast from my college past back in Springfield, Missouri. But today we have someone who I've known for a while, but we've reconnected because he's in racing and I love racing. And we're here to hear all about what it's like and to be, trying to make it in pro racing. So welcome, Derek Ware.
Thank you.
We're good. Happy to have you here. Yes, I'm very excited to hear all about what you've been doing since freshman year at Missouri State.
That's a long list.
I did some mental math, and that was
she's aging
10
you
years ago.
Real quick.
Oh my god! Don't even mention high school reunions. I don't think I'm even allowed to attend mine. Well, I am going to get started and just say, so we are here to talk all about like the process and the experience of how you got to where you are and what you've really been up to. So let's start with just like, tell us about you, your background, how did you get started, and your path to what you're up to now.
Start from the beginning. I went into go-karts at the age of 9 and was instantly hooked. There was no looking back. Did about 7 years in go-karts, took a couple championships, some U.S. championships, stuff like that. No international stuff, but, competed with some of the best here in the States and had a long, good run. And just like in most racing, you run out of money, you run out of seat time. So there was no more go-karts for me. Took a little break. That's about the time I went off to high school and started college over there in Springfield. And then finally, with about a semester left of college, I decided to, we're going back racing. Dropped out of college, went back into it full head first, not knowing what I was going to be doing, but knew that the Skip Barber Racing School Academy was kind of a dream that I'd always looked up. And my dad's like, hey, let's go do it. So there we go. Went on Skip Barber then. That was like 2016, 2017-ish, like late 2016, I think. And then went through their schooling program, and then they offer an academy shootout. So they bring the best 30 drivers from across the world, even the country, who've all participated in some sort of racing school of some sorts. And then they put you together and you compete. And first time around, you're allowed to do it twice. First time around, I ended up making it in the top 5. There were some kids everyone that finished ahead of me had already done it. So I was like, all right, well, not too bad. And then so prepped for the next year, went on and won the next year. 2018, I think. Won the shootout championship, was on cloud 9, ready to get my full season of racing with Skip Barber and really start my journey. Because from there, that's everything just snowballs. Well, that wasn't the start.
Yeah.
Skip Barber ended up filing for bankruptcy and shut down. I lost all of my scholarship. I lost everything that I'd worked so hard towards. So, yeah, I got kind of lucky and ended up moving over to sports car side of things. And there's a lot more seats in sports car than there is in open wheel stuff. You put it this way, if you look at IMSA or, a bunch of the different sports car series, sometimes there's 3-4 drivers per car. Whereas open wheel, you only get one. So it's a little bit easier to make in that world. So we did that for a couple of years, did some great racing, had some real good success. And then last year I ended up starting up a team with a gentleman, and we ran a 4-car team and an amateur endurance series while coaching some people to try and get them up and ready for the pro ranks. And while doing that, I also had my pro race debut with IMSA, who is one of the major sports car racing realms here in the States. So yeah, that was pretty exciting. And then now you know, just like all racing, you got to keep your head down, keep trying to find the money and the traction to keep going forward. So that's where we sit today.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's such an interesting path because I didn't know that you had left with
Mom
just
wasn't
a
too happy
semester
about
to
that
go.
one, but Dad was like, all right, well, let's make it work.
Yeah. I was going to ask, like, how did people react to you leaving school and saying, like, I'm going to go full on in racing?
Well, I mean, since I was a little kid, you know, everyone's always like, well, I'm going to be a race car driver. I'm going to be a race car driver. Well, when the little kid phase kind of wore off and I was starting to become an adult and I still said, I'm going to be a race car driver, you know, some people were pretty supportive of it. You know, some people were skeptical, as they'll always be. But for a good portion of it, I had a lot of friends and family and just peers that really helped push me and helped me get to the next levels. You know, that shootout, well, the one that I won, I ended up holding a fundraiser for it and had over 100 people show up and tons of money donated just so I could make it to the shootout because it was a big week-long event that I had to go to. So I've had a lot of good support from along the way, some skepticism, but you know, hey, you got to fight through all that in order to make it.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I think it's like very impressive that you've just at every turn, you know, even with your school going bankrupt, you're just like, and I still want to keep
I mean,
doing
you
this.
gotta look. Everyone would do it if it were easy, right? So you keep your head down, you keep forging your own path. You got to learn along the way. I'm a first generation race car driver, you know, so a lot of these guys, especially in Formula One, all of those Formula One drivers or most of them are second generation, third generation drivers. You know, their family kind of knows the path they need to take and how to get the sponsorship and how to, you know, work the politics of, you know, the paddock and everything else. And me and my dad we're learning along the way, and you know, we've given it a good run, and I think we're still here to keep fighting for more. So there's a couple series this year that I'm going to try and dabble in and see if we can't make a career out of that. Not quite Formula One, but we'll get there.
Hey, no, I mean, that's a whole different world. What, you mentioned like you're a first generation race car driver, your dad is helping you. What are those like politics that you have to navigate? Is it knowing the right people? Is it knowing just like the right way of doing things? Forging connections,
yeah.
networking?
A lot of networking. And my dad was just a hard-working, get the job done and keep going kind of guy, whereas I had to learn to be the more social butterfly and network throughout the paddocks and find the teams and talk to the people and, you know, kind of get in. And it sounds rough, but it is very cliquey. You know, you got to kind of get in with the right people at the right times, and you know, it can be kind of cutthroat as well. Everyone's trying to take the job because at the top, you know, everything really starts to funnel and bottleneck. You know, so you get to, like you said, Formula One, there's 20 seats, okay? Well, you know how many millions of kids out there want to drive race cars and drive Formula One? So the bottleneck's harder than almost any other sport in the world. You know, soccer, you've got, what, 15, 20 teams, 40 plus players a team. That's a lot of people still going into pro soccer. You know, same thing with baseball, football, whatever. But racing, NASCAR, 30 plus cars or 30-ish cars, only one driver per car, you know, so it's 30 people at the top there. IndyCar's the same way. So the bottleneck in racing is a lot harder. So you just have to know how to talk to people, you know, find the sponsorship. And that was the hardest part was learning the networking, learning the politics, knowing who's going to, a lot of people like to try and sell you the best thing, but who actually has the best thing? You know, and that's part of the politic game as well.
And how do you like get that information of knowing like who to go with? Because you know they're all trying to sell you on the same thing. Is it just
sometimes
trial
it is
and error?
Sometimes there's a little bit of well, that didn't work. Let's go to the next one. And then sometimes, you know, there's you get enough people behind you. You got some people you can rely on and ask the hard questions. And you know they've probably been in the sport for longer and done the certain things, and you know so they give you a couple things to look out for and who's who and who's not to talk to and those types of deals.
how long did it take you to like find
Yeah.
these people? I'm just so intrigued by this, like this paddock politic things. Like how do you find these people that are like the ones you trust? Is it just like they believe
so
in
I mean,
you, or like
it kind of comes with the personality you carry. You know, you're gonna attract the people that you know, the energy you give off. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try to be pretty lighthearted, you know, smiley, you know, look for the positive kind of person, and you find those people out there. They exist, and you kind of buddy up with them. And like I said, if they've been in it and they've been around it, they can point you in the right direction. So you just connect with the people that you kind of mesh with, you know, just in your everyday life. You have the same interests, you have the same likes, you're both the same type of people, and they've just done it already. They're older, they've gone further, or whatever. You know, they've caught their break early, so now they can help you catch your break.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that works. Yeah.
that's cool. I think that's so cool that there are people there that like genuinely want to help other people succeed. But I guess that's also what you're doing
Yeah, I mean,
right now.
you gotta be grateful for the opportunities you've been given, and the only way I can show, you know, my gratitude is by also giving back. And so I think, you know, the higher up I go, the more people I bring with me. You know, that's kind of how I look at it. If I make it special, you know, or make it, you know, successful, I want my friends to be with me, or you know, the kids that I mentored in their go-karts, you know, whatnot. So it's all just giving back a little bit.
Yeah, that's incredible. I love that you see that progression of, if I'm going to do well and be successful, then I'm going to take these kids with me, because that's, I mean, Megan and I talk about that all the time. Like, you know, one day if the podcast gets huge, you know, we want to take our music guy, we want to take our editor, we want to take everyone who's been a part of it and who's helped us become better as well. So
Yeah,
I love that.
definitely. And it's just like in your respective worlds, you build that family, you know, just like you're talking. Your sound guys, your video guys, they're all your family now, and that's who you bring with you. You grow, your family grows. So that's all it is.
Yeah, that's amazing. Talk to us a little bit more about what a day in the life of driving school is and what that even looks like. Because when I hear driving school, like, is it 9 to 5? Do you get lunch breaks? Is there a cafeteria? Yeah, just talk to us a little bit about it.
So driving school is, you pay a bunch of money, unfortunately, just as the motorsports world is. But you know, just like a tuition, you're paying a lot of money. It's your school, so my school is racing. And then it's typically like they like to do about a 2, 3, 4 day segment. So you show up, you know, first day is usually introductions of sorts, get you familiar with the car, kind of the equipment you're gonna be working with, whatever, your instructors, all those things. And then, you know, the schools I've been through, they really like to kind of put you in a car right away. You know, it's what you're paying to be there for, right? So they'll get you out, they'll do some real basic kind of maneuvers in the cars, kind of teach you a little bit of car control of the, you know, the specific car you're in, especially if it's a beginner one. You know, they want you to learn. You know, you're so used to coming up to a stop sign in your car and just pushing on the brake and the car stops. Well, how does the car stop? They want to teach you how the car stops. They want to teach you how the car turns and what it does when it's in the middle of a turn, and all these types of things. So they really start to break down the mechanics of a vehicle and the you know, the suspension setups and all those things. But really, so once you're in the car, you get a little bit of warm up, come out, you have lunch, and then now you're fresh, you recap on everything you learned in the morning, and you go back out and you use it. And so then they try to get you on track pretty quick. And so the more time you're on track, the quicker you're learning everything, you know, without overloading you. And you do that same thing basically for about 3, 4 days. And then if you get into the more advanced classes, they throw you right into cars, and then they start working on more advanced techniques like trail braking and, you know, just mid-corner entry, mid-corner exits, you know, kind of feeling how a car works through corners, and being able to relay that information to whether it's your engineer or just the coach helping you to help you set up the car, all those types of things. So it really breaks down and starts to give you a full mind space of how the car works, how to make the car better, how to make myself better, and, you know, and then be able to take that information and use it.
Yeah, that's incredible. I never thought it was going to be like short days and just plopping you in the car and getting you in there and letting you try.
No.
Do you feel like now you can hop in pretty much any vehicle and know what you're doing?
Yeah, I've got, as a race car driver, we all think we're the best drivers out there.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you have to, right?
So
Like, if you
you
weren't a
have to be the best out there.
little,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, in the end of the day, your vehicle dynamics is gonna be relatively similar to most cars you get into. I've heard the dirt world, the late model dirt racing, the sprint racing stuff. That's a whole new world that is basically everything you've learned road racing. You throw it out the window and you learn something new. That's the only other time. Even I've got a buddy who wants me to go do some UTV racing with him. Some off-road Lucas Oil sponsored racing, and that all, the vehicle dynamics, the way the car takes a set, the way the car, enters and exits corners, you're still hitting apexes, you're still finding your brake zones and your track outs and setting up for the next corner. So that all still relates, even if it means sliding a car sideways. I do that for Motortrend and the stunt driving stuff, and that all still is correlating. Yeah.
Okay, so lots of questions about all the things you just said. First question is, would you actually take the jump into off-road racing? Because that's becoming bigger now that there's
definitely
more of that out there.
It's hard to say no, because look, in the end of the day, if a sponsor comes up and says, "Hey, here's some money, let's go racing," you take the money and you go racing. There are some cool avenues too. There's a series that follows. I think they follow IMSA and IndyCar, and it's the Stadium Truck Series basically, hosted by Robbie Gordon, I believe. And all these UTV drivers now jump into that series, and now they're on the main stage. They're in front of all these people. They're on some of the most amazing tracks in the world. They'll go run Laguna Beach, with an IndyCar, and they'll do jumps higher than the stands and stuff like that. So it would still be a blast to do. To say I would just completely divert from road racing, probably not. Most race car drivers like to keep their fingers in all kinds of different racing avenues. Just more seat time. Yeah.
Yes, I completely understand that. Okay, next question to all the things you had just previously said. I have to ask about stunt driving. First off, how was the transition from being a road race driver to being okay, now I'm going to go stunt, which everything is, from my understanding, very choreographed,
You do
correct?
have a stunt coordinator basically on set at all times, kind of planning shots out, or they planned it out beforehand, and you just have to execute. But it's you're asked, how is it, right? How is being on set?
Yeah, what's how do you prepare for there must just be a different set of mental and notes and scripts you have to follow than okay, I'm gonna go race today. And I just feel stunting is
it is definitely
a structured narrative,
not racing. So obviously, but racing is, you show up at the track, the car's ready, you get out on track and you go do your thing. Whereas stunt driving is very much so, you're reading set lists, weeks in advance. You're kind of seeing what they want the car picture to look like, So you're talking with the director and the stunt coordinator, and you're kind of setting up how the picture's supposed to look and what they want you doing. And hey, is this possible? Is this possible? So you could also be on set. Racing is basically go from lights on. But in the film world, it's a lot of hurry up and wait. You could get in a car and then sit there for the next hour while camera gets ready or whatever. And so it's a whole different world. But, I was very blessed to find a lady who brought me into the film world before I even started stunt driving. So I kind of got to see from the ground up as a production assistant, basically, how things work on a set, and then transfer over to becoming, a SAG driver and being able to be in the, part of the union and get these cool commercial gigs and stuff like that. And so I know, I got to see a little bit of each job before I just hopped in as, the talent now instead of behind the scenes, because there's two very different worlds that happen there. But being the talent, it is cool. You get to sit at the big table with all the big guys and talk to some of the really cool people who've made some amazing movies and and you work real closely with the film car that's worth more than, any house that I could ever afford. And they're like, hey, drift around this at, 50 miles an hour, but don't hit this $3 million camera. So it's a little bit of, it's a little bit of paranoia at the same time. When you're racing, you race, you wreck, you fix it, and you go. Well, you hit the camera, shoots down. Now you've just cost hundreds of, not thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars in damages and time off and stuff like that. So it's very, very, very choreographed, very specific on what they want you to do. You need to be able to hit that mark every single time and don't make mistakes.
Yeah. Wow. That's I'm like amazed. I'm sitting here like, oh my God, that's mind blowing. Like I'm picturing the James Bond, I'm picturing the Fast and the Furious, like all of it.
It's a lot of what you see in the movies. I mean, it's just like that, it's pretty crazy, the intensity on set at all times.
Yeah.
But,
okay, so talk to us a little. Sorry, Megan. Do you want to ask your question? Yeah, you're okay. You're okay.
I have just one more question about stunt driving, and then you can ask. Coolest car you've gotten to drive stunt driving? Come on, tell us. Coolest one. Favorite? It doesn't have to be coolest. It could be favorite.
I've done some Lamborghinis and some Ferraris, the fun stuff. But I would say, actually, you know what? Okay, I did do a shoot. I have a buddy. I think I can say this. I'm going to be on a Netflix show. Yeah, I don't know if I can say which one, but there's a car that I use, and it is a very built ZL1 Camaro. So it's a 2018, I think, ZL1 1LE, hopped up Camaro. So it's supercharged, make like 800 something horsepower. It's custom one-off like gold wheels. Like it's crazy. Yeah. And I'm driving that in a TV show, and it'll be the first episode in the TV show.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to know what that is when we're allowed to know what that is.
Yes, exactly. They keep saying it's coming out, and it's been pushed a little bit, but rumor is it's still happening.
Yeah, you're making your Netflix debut.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
We will totally re-hype up this interview saying we got the first release of this information.
I love it.
The sneak.
Okay, so let's shift a little bit more into talking about preparing for a race. Like, how do you mentally get ready? What does your pre-race routine look like? Do you've got the tennis balls? Are you doing the reaction times? Like, talk to us about that.
So it starts typically week in advance. You're spending a lot of time on the simulator, trying to learn the track, trying to, match the car, trying to just be 100% familiar with the track. That way when you show up and you go out and you press the gas pedal, you know what's coming next. So you're watching a lot of videos, you're doing a lot of time on the simulator. And then I like to, in bed, the night before the race or qualifying, whatever it is, first day at the track even, all the video I've watched, if it's a track I've been there, I watch my video. If it's a track I've not been there, I watch someone that, I trust and has kind of the same driving style as me. And then I just run through it in my head. I close my eyes, I lay there, no sound, and I think through the shift points, I think through the brake points, I think through, each turn in, each track out, what's coming next. I'm very visual, and so in my head, I can picture all of this. And I just like they show in like the Senna movies, you just get that tunnel vision, you find it, and then boom, you go. And so I do that the night before. Then you wake up, and Dad usually makes a pretty good meal. He likes to be at all the races, so he makes me a good hearty meal instead of some hotel breakfast that's never good enough. And then it's basically game on. You recheck your notes. You make sure that you haven't forgotten something. That would be bad if you forget a turn or something like that. You go left instead you go right. But and then basically you go over your notes, you start stretching. Some people have their their tennis balls, their jump ropes, whatever. I like the jump rope. I just like to get the blood flowing.
Mm-hmm.
That was something I boxed for a lot of years, and I think it really helped my racing. And so jump roping was just always my center. I found good rhythm. You kind of get a good flow in your body going when you jump rope, and then stretch it out and get in the car and try not to be too nervous or you throw up.
Yeah. Do the nerves ever go away, or?
No. I mean, anytime you strap in, qualifying, not so bad. I mean, it's all right. But you know, no matter where you're at, if you're starting first or last on the paddock, you know, the moment you strap in and before you get onto the track, everything goes away. The tunnel vision kicks in. But if you're sitting there and you're doing your radio checks with your spotter and you're knowing that, like, okay, this is happening now, like, that's your last bit of, like, okay, keep everything down, and then we're good. And then as soon as you roll off, everything goes away. You're good. You take a deep breath, you get the air flowing, everything's good. So the nerves are hard, but no, they don't ever really go away. Sometimes they're not as bad as others, but yeah, it's just something you work with.
Yeah.
I've even heard, you know, IndyCar drivers for years. Joseph Newgarden says, he's like, man, every time I strap in, I'm ready to throw up. There's always nerves, you know?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. I'll never forget what movie is it, Megan? It's we just watched it, and he throws up before every race. It's Hunt, James Hunt.
Yeah.
Yes, he throws up before every race, and so it's like, now hearing you say it, and I've heard a couple other people say it, it's like, wow, those nerves really never go away.
No, there's just so much on the line. You know, your career could end that day, whether you get hurt or you just wreck out and there's no more funding, or you lose sponsorship because you didn't finish well. Like, there's so much on the line every single time you start a race car. So there's always nerves. And there's no one else to blame it on either. You're the one driving. So
yeah.
You take all the blame when things go wrong.
Do they really just go away, like, instantaneously after the race starts? Like, is it lights out and they're gone and you're just in the moment?
You're swerving and doing getting your brakes up to temp and things like that, getting your tires up to temp. That's your focus. So the moment the focus shifts from sitting in there thinking about it to actually being out there doing it, goes away. You know, now I'm scenario playing. I'm warming up the tires. I'm getting the brakes hot, make sure everything's good. Now it's more of a like an analytical standpoint. I'm like talking to my crew chief, making sure that we're in the same communication, strategy is ready. You know, we know what we're doing. And then by that point, you're ready for green flag, and you play out every situation that could happen in turn one and hope that the best one happens, you know? So it's pretty impressive when you go down there and you've got all these guys trying to go for the same spot, or guys and gals trying to go for the same spot. It's you want to be ready, and so your mind's focused on that and nothing else.
What do you do anything differently if you're like, you've had a bad qualifier, and like, is that night before the race any different to help you like reorient yourself, or is it like the same routine as if you've done well?
You try to be pretty consistent. That's just, as a driver, everything's about being consistent. You know, if you're consistent, then you can, then you can update, or then you can, like, change little things at a time. So the more consistent you are, the more consistent your routine is. Even just every little bit helps with the focus of what's going to happen on the track. So not really changing my pre-warm-up or, my notes. Maybe I'll go over the notes one extra time, make sure I didn't miss something, or double check why I messed up in qualifying. If it was just a bad lap, it's a bad lap. You throw it away, you move on. But also, drivers are pretty superstitious as well, so I make sure I've got all the superstitions worked out before I get back in the car the next day. I'm like, okay, we are good to go now. Oh.
Do you have any superstitions? Do you wear like the same socks?
Yeah.
Are you even willing to admit your superstitions? Will that mess up?
I think I can admit them, but so that shootout, the last one I won at AMP, I may or may not have only worn 2 pairs of socks in 5 days, and one pair was 4 days long. So once I started doing well, I was like, well, I had these socks on. There's no reason the socks were helping me. I changed my underwear, I changed my clothes, whatever else. I was wearing the same hat, but the socks are what did it for me, And so I don't know why it was the socks. It was just the socks thing. And it's always been kind of a socks thing. Through all of my sports and everything I've ever done, it's always a weird little socks thing. So every time I go out and play like rec league softball on the weekends, I'm not racing, I'm wearing the socks that I wore last time we won. So.
I love it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But I may or may not have gone through a couple dirty pairs of socks in my racing career just because I was like, you know what? They helped me get here. We're going to keep going.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do. And if it's the socks, it's the socks. If they're dirty, they're dirty.
Can keep going.
You know, you can like hang them up for the night. You're just like, if I'll hang them, they'll smell less.
Soaking hot leather fireproof boot, you know, for the last 12 hours probably of the day. You know, it's all right. You work with it.
Yeah.
They're a little crusty the next morning. They're a little crusty the next morning.
Have you? Yeah, we do.
Exactly.
We have,
Have
to
you
do what we
ever
have
done
to
a
do.
shoey with your boot?
No.
Okay.
So that one really didn't, you know, become a thing till I was in sports car racing, and you know, there's not a ton of podium celebrations like that. I guess there is. I mean, in the top realms, but like when I was managing the team last year, you're not on the podium spraying champagne. It was, you got your trophy, you got your picture, and you kept going. So no, the answer is I have not done a shoey yet. I think I'd be okay even if I had my 4-day-old socks in there. I would do it. It's worth it.
That's really the question I wanted to ask, so I'm glad you answered it.
Yes, it's worth it. If I'm 4 days deep in some socks, but we just won a big race, I'll do a shoey.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
They're not as bad as you would think. Like, they're pretty awful, but they're not terrible. I mean,
we've done a shoey.
We didn't die
so
when we did
we're still
it.
here.
Nice.
We did.
For literally no reason other
It was in a
than her
bowling shoe.
birthday, and it was
I
in a
own.
bowling
It's my
shoe.
bowling
So,
shoe.
like,
I have to. Yeah, it's my bowling shoe.
Not like you took some hair from the old Bolero and were like, oh,
No,
this is on my shelf for a while. Let's do a shoey out of them.
I had to clarify that it was my bowling shoe.
Yeah, all right, that's a little bit better then. It's, you know, it's still a lot of sweat and everything in them, but you know, that's just part of the flavor. Part of the flavor.
Part of the flavor. I love it. All right,
I'll do it.
I highly
Next podium,
recommend
we got
it.
it. Next win. It has to be a win.
All
Can't
right,
do it just
deal.
as a podium thing.
has to be a win.
yes, no, it has
All
to be
right.
a win. Well, we're
All
waiting
right, tell
for
us a
it.
little bit more about being on the other side of preparation with coaching and training. Like, how do you shift focus with that? How do you get them prepped? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So I use my coaching as coaching for myself. It's something I found that's worked for me. It helps me analyze my driving more when I'm analyzing other people's driving. So a lot of times, you know, you get a client, you get a car, you get track dates. Okay. So you get out there, basically I'll go out, I'll set a hot lap more or less for him to try and chase.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go out, I'll get a data lap, and then we'll come back, we'll review it, and he will or she will go over the video, we'll go over the data and be like, okay, let's go see what you got. So they go out, they run it, they come back in, and again, it's just a bunch of rinse and repeat. You know, we review the data, send it back out, comes back in, make some changes to the car, make some changes to him, his line, or their line, their break points, whatever it may be that they're missing. And it's just do it over and over again, because repetition and consistency is what makes you a better driver. And then, you know, you just kind of talk through the notes, and sometimes you do ride-alongs. You know, you can, if the car has the right seat, it's not most race car drivers' favorite thing, because you're now putting your life at other people's hands when you only like to be the driving or do the driving.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you can get, if you trust your client enough, you can get in and ride right seat, and that way you can do live instant, you know, coaching. You know, if he's coming up to a corner and their, you know, eyes aren't caught up and they're looking at their break point when they should already be looking for their turn in, you know, I can be talking to them through that, because I can see what's going on. I've been in their spot, so now I'm watching the car, I'm watching what they're doing, I'm watching what, you know, the track's doing, and I can help just be that extra voice in their head saying, hey, do this, hey, do that. And it helps them kind of learn that, and as they keep doing it over and over again, that voice just kind of starts to be permanent in their head instead of me physically being there saying it. But yeah, it's a lot of just consistency, rinse and repeat, do it again, do it again, do it again. And then, you know, it helps me, like I said, it helps me give myself that voice in my head when I'm driving the race car. So you don't really switch it off. You just keep doing it, and you know what you're supposed to be doing. So I tell them what they're supposed to be doing.
And do you also do like physical training, like not on track, but like
Yeah,
strength and
so
conditioning,
as a race car
cardio,
driver, you
or
kind of have a lot of jobs outside of racing, typically, just because one racing doesn't pay the bills until you're up in the higher ranks. And so I looked at becoming a personal trainer as well. Went through all the schooling to do personal training, and then never took the final exam. So I am pretty well versed in strength and conditioning, stuff like that. So I do like to work with some of my clients on building them a program, whether it's just a recommendation because I'm not an actual personal trainer, but I kind of give them a, hey, look, let's go work on this week. Looked like you got tired after your second session, and we need a little bit more cardio. Your shoulders were tired because you just couldn't handle the G forces of the car or something. So we'll do some of that. I do a lot of it personally, like I touched on with boxing. I think that was one of the best things I ever did for my racing career. It gave me focus while under pressure. You're getting punched and you're still thinking. It gave me some of the best cardio I've ever had. It gave me great hand-eye coordination, gave me quick reflexes, everything you need to drive a race car. So I do suggest that a lot for a lot of my clients. I'm like, hey, look, even if you go to your gym and you're working with a personal trainer, a lot of them know the basics of boxing. So why not try it? Get the hands moving, get the eyes moving, and think under pressure. And then they usually feedback to they like that a lot. And it's a fun at workout instead of just going in there and pushing weights and whatnot. So
that's really interesting. I would have never thought that would be like the workout for people to do, but it makes total sense because it is hand-eye coordination and you're gonna get punched like that.
exactly.
If you're not paying attention, you're gonna hit the wall.
Out there. So you're playing chess in a race car because you've got multiple different moves going on in your head of working, the track and the people and the traffic, and the car, dealing with the car at the same time. So same thing with boxing, you're trying to think several steps ahead, just like you would in a race car, because I want to set this guy up to punch him here. So I'm going to do a couple shots up high and then throw a left hook, and then I've got the right hook to the body coming. So same thing with racing, I keep acting like I'm going to dive to the inside of this corner. Well, next lap, he's going to think I'm going to go there. He's going to move over, and I'll be on the left side of the track ready to take the outside and work my way around. So, I was so surprised. I didn't know it was going to do it, but it translated so well into racing. I mean, you watch Lewis Hamilton, Daniel Ricciardo, Leclerc, all of them have videos of them boxing. Pato O'Ward in IndyCar, he's a huge boxer. He loves boxing. His gym in San Antonio looks amazing, and I just want to go hang out all day long. But a lot of race car drivers do box because there's a lot of correlation between the two.
So if you get to randomly go hang out with Pato, I'm coming. I have so many questions about his life. I think he's so cool, and I like fangirl on him so hard. And it's like secretly, I will openly admit that I watch a lot of TikToks about Pato O'Ward because he's just like cool, and his gym is freaking amazing.
Amazing life. I've met him a couple times. One of our mutual friends raced together in the 24, and so I got to meet him through that. And he seems like a super down to earth, fun, relaxed guy, but does live quite the life and gets to have some fun doing it,
Tell us a little about your experience last year, because it was your pro debut. You were the joint race with
so
the 24
last
hours
year
of Daytona.
was I helped, I teamed up with a guy to manage a race team. We had 4 cars. But we did that amateur stuff. So we did amateur endurance racing, which was like each weekend was 2 9-hour endurance races. Or, if we went to Daytona, we did a 14-hour endurance race. And then they had a 24-hour race at Sebring, which was mind-boggling, but it was cool. 24 hours at one of the toughest, hardest surface tracks in the country, if not in the world. Really abuses cars and drivers. So it was pretty cool to see the attrition of all that. So we started in, I guess, late December or early December. We bought one car and we're like, hey, let's go, drive race cars and, get some clients, and we can grow from there. Well, we did our first race in Circuit of the Americas in December. So not last year, but the year before. That was just kind of like our warm up, like, hey, let's try this. And so we did that and brought out actually NASCAR driver Corey LaJoy, kind of helped coach him around the track, get him some seat time because NASCAR was headed there. He's like, hey, let's give this a shot. So I'd met him through some of the TV show stuff I do, and I was like, come on out, let's do it. And we had a couple other drivers, and we were doing really well. Just lost the car both days. We had a driver find a wall, and then we had a driver blow a transmission. So it was tough, but we were, I mean, right up front the entire time. We're like, okay, we can actually do this. Like, let's give it a go. Well, fast forward about a month or two, 2 Porsches came up for sale that were just running an IMSA the year before by a guy that I knew here in St. Louis, actually, where I'm based out of. And the financier, the team was like, well, why don't we get these? They're going to be good in the series. And I was like, I mean, sure, we'll give it a go. And so then that snowballed into him also buying a BMW in Belgium, I believe. It was sitting over there. And then he's like, well, we also need another Miata, you know, that way we can work that Miata on some weekends and then coach on other weekends. And I'm like, so we went from a one car, maybe $100,000 program to several $1 million and looking at toters and, you know, doing the full blown deal. Had 2 shops basically running operations, and it was just mind boggling how quick it all exploded. And so we went through that pretty quickly, and, you know, he wanted to see some returns in the series, and unfortunately he didn't. So we ended up parting ways about 3/4 of the way through the season. But in all of that, I did get to do my first pro race with IMSA. So it was at the 24 Hours of Daytona event, but it was not the big race. It was a prelim race, and it was in it was in the MX5 Cup series. So little 2021 Mazda Miatas, but they've got, you know, full race suspension, brakes. They've got a sequential transmission. Everything's stripped out. They've got full FIA race roll cages. You know, they go from a $30,000 street car to a $90,000+ race car in a heartbeat. And then you have 30 of them in a spec series. So they're all, you know, same engine, same transmission, same different. Like, you can't adjust any of that. The only thing you can do is adjust, you know, actual race suspension, you know, the setup of the suspension and tire pressures. And then it's all up to the drivers. So you have 30+ Miatas running around Daytona, all basically fighting for the lead at any point because there's packs of 10 to 15 cars drafting past other packs of 10 cars. Like, it's just like NASCAR at times. It's mind-boggling how close the racing is in the MX5 Cup Series. It's some of the closest racing. We used to run with IndyCar for a while before we switched over to IMSA, and they had, I would see all of the IndyCar drivers just walk out onto the paddock, you know, under their little like tents just to watch our races, because it was so intense the entire time for 35 minutes or 45 minutes. It was nuts. So it was pretty exciting. I finished okay. Just got off on the back foot. I hadn't been in a car in like 6 months when I got the call to do it. So we put up a show. You know, we came up and did a thing, and, you know, my teammates ended up winning the race. So it was cool to see that happen. You know, we were all part of the team, and it was all a fun weekend to be a part of, though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So cool. So cool to have all these experiences within the racing world that you're sharing with us today. So yeah.
Well, you know, there's a lot to be talked about when you go through the racing world.
Yeah.
There's so many different avenues you can go down and so many different things you can do to be a part of it.
Tell us about your like proudest moment in racing that you've ever had.
Oh. Yeah.
I know, tough one. We had to add a tough one, but the one after this is an easy one. I
Daytona
promise.
was awesome. Like, that's your first big deal. But I think honestly was winning my first race in Skip Barber. So that weekend that I talked about where I won the shootout, leading up to that, there was actually a 3-day race, or 3 days of racing as well. So we were allowed to do those 3 days of racing to kind of learn the track and get an upper hand going into the shootout. Everyone was allowed to do it, so I took advantage of it. And my first race, and well, I guess it was like my second race in Skip Barber. But like my first real race, I knew what I was doing. I was ready to get out there and just kind of, you know, learn the track. I didn't actually have any plans on winning or qualifying well. I just wanted to go learn the track. It'd been raining all day, and I was like, all right, well, let's not wad a car up. We're here to learn. And I get out there, and qualifying was okay. I qualified like 4th out of 11 or 12, something like that. So nothing crazy. The front 3 guys were all fighting for the championship in the series that year. And so I was like, I don't want to mess with them. I don't want to mess up their season. Well, come race time, we head out, and I'm doing well. I was like, oh, that's cool. I passed the guy. And then, like, oh gosh, I'm catching the leaders. All right, let's keep going. And, it's still raining, like the track's soaking wet. There's tire spray everywhere. And, I pick off another guy, and then I'm fighting with the leader. And I was like, I'm not going to try and fight with him again. I didn't want to mess up their championship, but, like, if I'm faster, I'll go around him. And it just happened I was faster, and I went around him. And next thing I know, I'm in the lead of the race, and we got a last lap or 2 left, and he's just falling behind. And I was like, all right, well, let's keep going. And that when you asked me that question, there was one picture that popped in my head, or one thing that popped in my head. It was a video that someone took. I get out of the race car, or I pull up the pit lane, and, my dad's always been a big part of my racing career. My family's always there, but my dad and I, it was just kind of our thing. And I get out of the car, and he's the first person I see, and he just screams woo, and it's kind of like ritual when you win your first Skip Barber race, they dump a bucket of ice on you.
Yeah.
Well, mind you, it's raining. It was like February in Virginia, so it's maybe 50 degrees. I'm freezing already, and they decide to dump icy water down my back. So I'm like shivering, but I jump out of the car, and I run up, and I give my dad a hug, and he like pulls me over the barrier. And then I'm like hugging everybody. And it was like my first, big race win. Even though it wasn't a pro race, it was like my first big win. And so that's probably my coolest experience while driving a race car, was getting out and just seeing it, start to pay off. That was what it was. Like, things were coming together. And I saw my dad and my friends, and everybody was there cheering. So that was special. I'll always remember that one.
I love that. Your dad is your own personal woo girl. Like, that's so cool.
He's embarrassed by it, but I love it. He was just so excited. He didn't know what to do. He just threw his arms up and screamed woo. I was so excited.
It's so amazing that you guys have done this together. Like, it probably has made you guys closer. I mean, it seems like you guys were close before, but this is only just
something. It's always
added to it.
Like everyone's got their parent and they do their thing with. Well, this was, I did baseball, I did sports, I did soccer, whatever. My mom was always, she was always athletic as well. So that was just the joint parent thing. But like me and my dad really went down this racing world together. And, we would mom was home with my sister, and dad and I would take off to the go-kart tracks on the weekend. And we'd be gone March to October, every weekend. So you just build that bond with him, and it's just something that you cherish, you never want to let go of, So having him being there for all of it was special.
That's fucking cool. I'm just gonna say it. That right? Like, I think that's the only way to respond to that. Like, that's awesome that
and
they supported
a little bit of
it.
touchback here on that Daytona weekend. The financier I was working with at the time, he was really good to me. He tried to give me a really cool opportunity. It just didn't work out. But it didn't seem like my dad or anyone was gonna be able to make it, because it was kind of like a last minute thing. I was just trying to get out there and get the race weekend done, because I just was so far behind. The whole team had been there testing and whatnot, and I had not. So they sent me all the videos and the notes and stuff, and so I was trying to focus on that. And they're like, look, we don't want to distract you, nothing. We don't want any outside distractions and nothing. Well, lo and behold, Tiger, the guy, my financier, he's like, hey, come with me. I need you to go talk to the BMW tent. We're trying to, work something out with our car in Belgium. I said, okay, that's fine, because, that was part of my job as the team manager. So I'm walking over there, and I'm still in my suit and everything. I think we had just gotten out of, like, qualifying or something like that. And I was walking over there with him, and all of a sudden I'm walking up, and I'm like, I see one of my dad's best friends, who actually was the start of me getting into racing. So that's a whole nother story. But he helped him and his 2 sons, and then me and my dad got into racing together at the very same time. Like, he's like, hey, let's go try this out, guys. Well, I see him standing there, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Dan made it out, because he lived in Florida. So I was like, oh, that's cool. He made it out. I didn't know he was coming. And then I'm like, I see kind of my dad and my girlfriend sitting on a bench. I'm like, wait a second. Like, everyone's here. Like, what is going on? And so he surprised me. I flew him out there, and he didn't want the other distractions leading up to it, but qualifying was done. Now it was just race time, and so they got to watch my first pro race, and again, him being there was one of the most special things I could have ever asked for. So yeah, the journey with him is only more special each time. Each time you make it up, it's like, look, we started down there and we keep going. So it was cool to have him there for every part of this experience.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. To see your family there when you thought they weren't going to be there, it's just, it changes the whole weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it brings more sentiment to each weekend as well. Not everyone's fortunate enough to have those kind of opportunities. And so you never want to take any of it for granted. So I'll always be grateful for those types of situations and days at the racetrack.
I love it. Okay, I did. We're gonna wrap up, but I did promise you an easy last question because we just made you ready. Because we are an F1 podcast, we have to ask: what's the team? What's the driver you would back? What's the one?
Not all an easy question. Okay. Since day one.
I mean,
I'll break it down a little bit here. All right. Since day one, I was always a Lewis Hamilton fan.
Okay.
I was always a Lewis Hamilton fan. Now, I will be very forward and say I am not a Max Verstappen fan. I think the kid's talented, and that's where I draw the line. I don't like him at all. Yeah, not a Max Verstappen fan. If I had to give my top three, I'd say Danny Rick, Charles Leclerc, and Lewis.
Okay.
Those are my three.
You can stay. You're allowed to stay.
You can stay. You can stay. I mean,
I love it. Danny Rick. I mean, you not like him. That's just, it's not possible not to like him.
Physically impossible. The people that don't like him there's a very small number of them, and it must physically hurt them every morning to not like that man.
Happy in life, and so they can't be happy for him being happy. Because Danny's always happy. Even when he's not happy, he's happy. There's still a smile to be had, even after a bad race or a wreck.
It's. You have to love him. He is literally sunshine in human form.
I think Charles Leclerc had an awesome background in his life, and being part of Jules and whatnot. And the kid is talented, and I really, really hope if Lewis doesn't win this year, I want Charles to take it.
Yeah.
Especially because I don't think Max deserved that championship last year.
Okay, and that's the tea.
Ooh, and that's the tea.
FIA red flags. That race should have been stopped, and that's a whole different story. I'm sure you guys already talked it on here, but yes, I do not at all agree with Max Verstappen's championship. I will always put an asterisk by that. So I want Charles Leclerc to beat him this year. I think he's got the best shot, and the kid is talented.
Indeed,
he's always
he
so
is.
calm and collective.
As long as he does not do something stupid or have another incident.
Monaco, eh? Nah, I hope so.
Hey, guess what? He got it over with. He crashed. He crashed Nicky Lauda's car already.
So hopefully, I may have peeped the podcast. I think I heard he got it out of the way. So hopefully it's gone.
I mean, if superstition is a thing,
that's
theoretically he's already fulfilled the curse. I did look up curses the other night.
Fingers crossed he shows up and does well. It'll be a fun race to watch for sure. Which one's first? Barcelona's first, and then Monaco. So yeah, we got a week to prepare for that, and then we hit Monaco. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah,
that's a bucket list track.
Exactly. Well. That's for you to drive
both,
or you to
but
attend?
hey, you guys, if you make it big, just take me with you and we'll do a podcast live from the track, all right?
Love it.
Perfect. You can be like our version of Martin Brundle. You can do a grid walk.
Let's do it. We'll go full broadcast on this one.
Perfect.
Oh, I love it.
Maybe we'll need to like stream a race, the three of us,
Yeah.
and the three of us react to it, because that would actually be funny. The two of us just babbling on about F1, and then you being like, "Okay, like he braked a little late on that. That's why he did it." And we'd be like,
And you guys keep it
"Okay."
Yeah, love it. Oh my gosh.
I'm ready.
That's something we can do. Well, we want to give you an opportunity to plug like your socials where people can like follow you.
Everything is at,
So go for it.
Derek Ware 98. So DerekWare 98. Typically no spaces. I think Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, those are all the same. So Derek Ware 98 on all of it. It's pretty good. And then I keep that updated with my daily life in the film world and then the racing world and everything else that happens. So it's always fun to follow along. You'll see some of the drama from the TV show in there as well. So that's hiding deep down in the Instagrams. Yeah, they pulled all the socials for it. There's some beef, man.
Ooh.
So it's cool to hop on and check it out. So go give it a look.
Ooh. Thank you. Yeah, everyone go follow him, hype him up.
Everyone go follow him.
We'll keep you updated when the Netflix show drops too.
Yes. I'll shoot Megan a text, be like, hey, it's happening. That's all I'm going to say. It's happening. Yes, you'll just have to get me back on. and then
I'll
we
know
can go through
exactly
the
what you
whole
mean.
show as well. So
Done.
there we go.
Done. We'll book it in
like
now. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much. It was good to catch up. And
Definitely.
I mean, we're
Thank
gonna
you
have to
guys
do it
for having
again.
me on.
We've already
More
planned
than
some
I'll be
things.
more than happy to hop back on an episode with you guys again. It was fun.
Thank you, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to another episode. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us at Dirty Driving Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
Until next time, stay dirty.